Well, good morning, friends. It's good to see you. Morning, Ruth. Morning, Marlene. Renick. Uh, I just realized as this was loading that um, I put the wrong date on. So if you see it's the 16th, it's not the 16th, it's the 23rd today. Um, but anyway, it's one of those things. Good to see you all. Um, Friends, I just wanted to run through some notices with you before we start. The first one is thank you to Richard again and Morag for beautiful music that they perform on Friday. If you would like to listen to that on a Friday on our Facebook page, we have um, music, and you just comment what song you'd like and they will play it. Morning, everyone that's logging in now. And so that's the first thing. The second thing is that this Friday we have our pub quiz, and it's Nancy's doing that. So if you would like to be part of that, please let me know. I'll help you with the technology if you're struggling to get into that as well. Then the newsletter this year will be, or this coming month is going to be slightly delayed, and that's because we're going to be publishing some stuff in it about how we're going to reopen the church. It's so it'll only come out mid-September, mid to 20th of September, or yeah, next month. So at the moment the church is not open, but we do have a group in place that are looking at ways on how we can do that safely and do that effectively. So just so you know that the newsletter is going to be a little delayed because we want to publish a proper spread in that about what we're going to do. Then this week, Wednesday, we have Courageous Conversations. And if you would like to submit any questions that you have, please do. It's great to have some feedback. And if you haven't watched them, head over to our YouTube page and you'll be able to see them there. And then lastly, friends, and most importantly, in the last couple of weeks, it's become really apparent to me that we're still struggling quite a bit with our emotional health. And there's people in our community that are struggling. If you see someone who's struggling, just have a conversation, give a phone call, just be in touch. It's really important that we care for each other. So if you could do that. Good morning to all those who have logged in recently. Good to see you. Good. So friends, we start today from Exodus. And Exodus is one of these books I always think is really fascinating. And so we're going to read from Exodus 8 to Exodus 2 verse 10. And it goes like this. Now a new king arose over Egypt who didn't know Joseph. He said to his people, "Look, the Israelite people are more numerous and more powerful than we. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, or they will increase. They will increase, and in the event of war, join our enemies and fight against us and escape from the land." Therefore, they set taskmasters over them to oppress them with forced labor. They built supply cities, Pithom and Ramesses, for Pharaoh. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. So the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites. The Egyptians became ruthless, imposing tasks on the Israelites and made their lives bitter and hard with hard service in mortar and brick and in every kind of field labor. They were ruthless in all the tasks they imposed on them. The king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, one of whom was named Serpha and the other one Puah, "When you act as midwives to the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stool, if it is a boy, kill him. But if it is a girl, she shall live." But the midwives feared God. They did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, but they left the boys to live. So the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and said to them, "Why have you done this and allowed the boys to live?" The midwives said to Pharaoh, "Because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, for they are vigorous and give birth before the midwives comes to them." So God dealt with the midwives, and the people multiplied and became very strong. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families. Then Pharaoh commanded all these people, every boy that is born to the Hebrews you shall throw into the Nile, but you shall let every girl live. Now a man from the house of Levi went and married a Levite woman. The woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw that he was a fine baby, she hid him 3 months. When she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and plastered it with bitumen and pitch. She put the child in and placed him among the reeds on the bank of the river. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. The daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe in the Nile, while her attendants walked beside the river. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her maid to bring it. When she opened it, she saw the child. He was crying, and she took pity on him. This must be one of the Hebrew children, she said. Then his sister said to the Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and get a nurse from the Hebrew woman to nurse the child for you? Pharaoh's daughter said to her, yes. So the Pharaoh girl went and called the child's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this child and nurse it for me, and I will give you your wages. So the woman took the child and nursed it. When the child grew up, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and she took him as her son. She named him Moses, because she said, I drew him out of the water. It's quite a famous passage, this, and as I read it this week, it did something to me. It made me think, it made me examine a bit, and I found myself, I don't know if you've ever done this as you read the Bible, putting yourself in different people's feet. And first, I put myself in Pharaoh's feet and I was just like, what must it be like to get to a place where this is, where you rule like this? So Pharaoh was this tyrant, really oppressive, and yeah, he had no mercy. Had no mercy. And then you get these midwives, and I try to put myself in the shoes of these midwives as they tried to bring life into the world, but at the same time we're told that they had to take life. What would that be like? What would it be to be a midwife in that kind of scenario? And then I found myself putting my feet into the baby's mother's shoes, and what kind of a world must it be where you have a child and it's beautiful and you have to let it go? Imagine the heartache and the pain of that. Almost like a lottery system, like that. It's so bad outside that you've got to let your baby go down into the bulrushes or down the Nile. What would that be like? And then I put myself into the baby's sister's shoes. I wonder how that felt, watching your brother drift down the water, not knowing if he would be eaten, if he'd go down a little path, and then seeing with anxiety Pharaoh's daughter picking up this child and what could happen to him. And then I put my shoes in Pharaoh's daughters, or put my feet in Pharaoh's daughter's shoes. She picks up this child and she has pity on him. But she knows that he's a Hebrew. She knows that she shouldn't be doing this. What would her dad say? And as I found myself walking in these different shoes this week, I found myself connected with one word. That the one thing that connects all of these people together is the word fear. They're all have this deep fear. Pharaoh has a deep fear of the Hebrew people. He is deeply scared of them. Like he sees there's multiple of them, and he's worried that he'll lose his reign, that these people are going to turn on him. So he has this deep-rooted fear that what has been given to him will be taken away in an instant. And then you've got the midwives. Yes, they're scared of Pharaoh too. But they want to do the right thing. Imagine being a midwife, that fear that grips them. And then you've got the baby's mother. And what fascinates me again, and I said it earlier, is that she has a deep fear that her son will be killed. And so it is so bad that she would rather risk putting him down the Nile than staying where she is. It reminds me a little bit of those immigrant photos. You know, remember those photos of those people crossing, I think it was in Turkey, and the baby was dead on the beach. It must have been about 2 years ago. What is it that people would risk their lives? You know, what is it that they would give up? How bad is it from where they've come that is an option? And that's what this baby's mother is. It's so bad that she has to let her son go. She's so fearful of what could happen to him that she'd rather let it go than keep it. And then you get Moses, or the baby's sister, and she must have been incredibly fearful about what could happen to him. And then you get Pharaoh's daughter, who picks up this child, and she's going against her dad, yeah. You know, the incredible fear, but yet her compassion is more than her fear. But the thing that connects them all together, the strand, the golden line from top to bottom that connects them together, is fear. They're all fearful. And I started to look for myself how I would define fear. And this is my own definition. You can take it or leave it, or you might have your own. And for me, fear is our unresolved pain, our insecurities seeking to control. Fear is our unresolved pain or our insecurities seeking to control. And in this story, Pharaoh's insecurities are played out. Pharaoh's insecurities. And sorry, friends, I can see that we're having a bit of internet trouble at the moment. I hope it comes back. For all those who are saying hello, good morning, it's good to see you. I see the internet's now back up and running. So Pharaoh, this story is Pharaoh's insecurities playing out. And so what Pharaoh does is he uplifts himself, he uplifts the Egyptian people, and he demeans the Hebrews. He knows that things could be taken away. So what he does, he creates an us and them. And he does this by uplifting, as I said, the Egyptians and oppressing the Hebrew people. And he creates slaves. He makes them fall into forced labor. Pharaoh's insecurities created, I guess I said, this us and them. And what happens is the survival of this fittest. So if I can oppress you, then you can't retaliate. If I can demean you and I can make you less powerful, then I am more powerful, and then things work out better for me. So he does this 3-step program. He gets scared of the Hebrews, and he makes up these scenarios. This is the second step. He makes these scenarios up in his head that if I leave them to be, well, then you just know what they're going to do. If I leave them to just carry on the way that they are, well, we know exactly how this is going to go. And it's not going to end well for us. So he creates a scenario. And the third thing Pharaoh does is he starts to place stereotypes on these people. He starts to make these stories about people, about these Hebrews, that are untrue. And not only are they untrue, he starts to believe the untruths. And that's what happens in the story. Pharaoh is scared or fearful. He creates this scenario, and he starts to tell these lies about these people. And then he believes the lies. And so Pharaoh builds an empire on this whole kind of hairball. He builds an empire making slaves of the Hebrews. And a slave is oppressed, is demeaned, they're exploited, and they're under the control of someone else. And that's what Pharaoh does to them. But the reality of the story is the person who's also a slave is Pharaoh. Pharaoh is a slave to his insecurities. Pharaoh is a slave to his fear. He's not ruling out of equality and justice and all of these things. He's ruling out of his own slavery, his own fear. Now, the problem with fear is that it's forever expanding. It's like a balloon that you put air in, but it keeps having more space, and it's never full. And the more Pharaoh creates this kind of hairball, or this kind of destructive, fear-based leadership, well, the more he needs to control things. So what does he do? He creates more stereotypes, and he creates more scenarios where these Hebrew people are demeaned. He needs a bigger narrative to fund this fear, because fear needs more fear. And so it keeps growing and keeps growing, and eventually what Pharaoh does is he decides, well, what I've got to do is I'm not only going to make them slaves now, I'm going to start murdering them. I'm going to mass murder them and their men. I'm going to kill. So it starts with slavery. It ends with genocide. And it's just a remarkable story of how fear just increases, doesn't it? It increases and increases. Pharaoh's fear it continues. Sorry, Fred. Pharaoh's fear squashes not only himself, it doesn't only put him in slavery, but it puts everybody around him in slavery. It creates dysfunction wherever it goes. And this is why Exodus starts the way it does. Exodus starts this way because it's a warning. It's a warning to you and I that fear never wins. This story starts with deep fear. The story of Exodus starts in slavery. It starts with fear. But it's not going to end in fear. It's not going to end with fear ruling the roost. Fear never, ever wins. Fear might look like power. Pharaoh might look like he has it all together, but he doesn't. Pharaoh might look like he's a strong man, but he's not. He's incredibly weak. He can't even control himself. You cannot live sustainably. And this is what Exodus is trying to tell us. You cannot live sustainably when you are operating from a place of fear. It will kill you, and it'll kill those around you. Fear will kill you, and it will kill those around you. And Exodus is a warning, but friends, we all know that humanity has not learnt its lesson. We still get stuck in the same trap, time and time again, where we think that we can rule by fear. We think that if we just oppress another group, if we just hold them down, if we're just better than them, if we get to this first, then we'll win. Then we'll win. And despite Pharaoh's best attempts, he cannot control everything. Despite everything he throws at it, despite all the violence, despite all the kind of propaganda he throws at it, despite everything that he throws at it, he cannot squash out rebellion. He's not fully in control. Because if we look at the story, he's undermined He's undermined by the Hebrew people who keep multiplying. The story says he squashes them in an attempt to diminish their childbirth. So basically, if I just keep them busy, then they can't have children. But the Hebrews still have children. He's undermined by the midwives who refuse to kill these children. And he's undermined even by his own family. He's undermined by his daughter. His daughter knows that she cannot live in fear. She knows within herself that she cannot live in that place. So I think that Exodus is a lesson for us, for you and me. A lesson about the dangers that we all have about living from a place of fear. Remember what I said in the beginning? For me, fear is our insecurities and unresolved pain seeking to control. If we live from fear, it will kill us. It will kill us, and it will kill those around us. And so I think there's 3 ways that this story helps me sort of flesh it out. I try not to live from a place of fear. And the first one is that we live in a world of abundance, but we live in a system that tells us that there is scarcity in the world. We live in a world of abundance, but there's a system or a story that tells us that there is scarcity. There is enough love in the world. There is enough joy. There's enough friendship. There's enough going around. You know, there is enough. But we are told that there isn't. That we need to get our share before someone else does. You know, we need to fight hard to get our bit before someone else's. You know, we live in the scarcity. There's enough, we know this, there's enough food in the planet to feed everyone. But yet we live in a system that's scarce, that provides scarcity. There was stories of oranges in America that were dumped, tons and tons and tons and tons of oranges that were dumped into the ocean to keep the price of oranges up. Instead of sending those oranges to a place that's struggling with famine, they dump them into the ocean. There is an abundance of things in this world. Scarcity robs us of joy. If we believe the lie of scarcity, it'll rob us of joy. Jesus speaks about this. He says, look at the lilies of the field. Do not worry. Look at them. They are plentiful. God has provided for them. Look at the sparrows. God has provided for them. The writer of Exodus starts like this. He says, Pharaoh did not know Joseph. And in the story of Joseph, even in the midst of drought and famine, shared. This Pharaoh has a mentality of scarcity. And so, the first thing is we need to stop telling ourselves the lie that there is not enough. The things that really matter, there's a lot of. There's no limit to love. One of the things that the church has sold scarcity of is God's love. Let me tell you this now, friends. There is enough of God's love to go around. We are the ones that put the limitations in place. So the first one is that we need to live from a place, or we need to have a view of the world as not, or we have to have a view of the world as one of abundance, not scarcity. The second thing is that as much as we think we are in control, we are not in control. As much as we think we can control the things around us, we cannot. There is no way we can control everything. You know, we're on a rock. You and I are on a rock that's spinning at 137 miles per hour on its axis, which goes at 67,000 miles per hour around the sun, in a solar system that is moving at 448,000 miles per hour. How much control do we have of that? Honestly, like we have no control, and as we have very little control of our lives. We cannot control everything. We can try, but we can't. And because we live from an insecurity, we will try. If you're anything like me, insecurities are all around me. I mean, I have insecurities about, like sickness. Will I get sick? Will I get cancer tomorrow? Will I wake up and something will happen? Will something happen to the people I love? Will someone break my heart? Will the phone ring and somebody be on the phone and telling me about something that's gonna like just break me? I have those insecurities. I have those fears. For some of us, we have an insecurity or a fear that we're gonna get a phone call and says you have no money, that we're coming for your house. We have fears that everything that we've done will be taken away from us. And so we try and control our lives, that those fears don't come into reality. And that's natural. It's natural that we would want to control those things. But the reality is, we do not have control. You could walk across the road and get hit by a bus. You cannot stop the phone ringing and it not being bad news. You cannot stop the fact that you might die tomorrow. We cannot control everything. But the problem is that we live from that insecurity. That our whole life becomes about trying to stop that insecurity. Just recently, I was speaking to a friend and they were telling me how burnt out they are, that they are working unbelievably hard. So much so that their mental health is suffering, they're physically exhausted, and they're worried. They're worried that they're going to have a nervous breakdown. They're worried about it. And as we started digging and we were talking, it came really apparent that the reason that this person was working so hard was because they wanted to be financially secure. Because they'd grown up in debt. They'd grown up in a household where things had fallen apart. So for them, they were living from a place of fear that they didn't want this to happen to them. They wanted to be able to control it. And they were putting their life on the line. They were a slave to their fear. Is that the place you want to live from? And the problem with fear is that it's like that ever-building balloon that I spoke about with Pharaoh. is that it starts off small. It starts off, but eventually it goes from slavery to genocide. Our own fear starts off small, but eventually it wraps our whole life around it. That we need to sustain it. This person that is working themselves to death, they've got enough money. They don't need to be working like that, but their fear drives them. But they need more money because they're worried about the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. And it just drives their life. The problem with fear, like Pharaoh, is that we buy into this lie that we need more and more and more. And it kills us, and it kills people around us. It is unsustainable to live like that. Unsustainable to live from a place of fear. And Exodus is a warning to us. Don't live from that place. Don't live from that place. And the third thing. So the first one was that we live in a world of abundance, not scarcity. Excuse me. The second one was that we are not in control as much as we would like to be. Be okay with that. And the third thing about fear, if we're going to overcome it, we need to be able to listen to those people that are offering us new life. Pharaoh had one blind spot, and that was woman. Because every time he tried to oppress women with his power, they sort of found a way around it. The midwife, or the midwives, the baby's mother, she didn't kill her child. And the third one is his own daughter. Pharaoh couldn't control these people because they knew that there was a better way to live, that fear was not going to rule their house, that they were not going to rule from a place where scarcity and the lies, they weren't going to control themselves. They decided that they were going to live from a different place. And he didn't listen to them. He tried to control them, but they lived from a different place. For many people, we have those people in our lives. These people that are saying to us, you don't have to live like that. Friends and people who are calling us to a simpler life. To not live from our fear. We have those. Or we've got, you might be like, you might have this fear that drives you, that drives and drives and drives you. But you know deep within yourself, there's an inner voice that in you that says, this is not how I'm supposed to be living. This is not how I want to live. That deep, 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 deep voice that's within you that says, this is not good. Listen to that voice. Listen to it. Because those are the voices that are calling you to new life, to new ways of living. Pharaoh's daughter, the midwife, and Moses' mother, they lived out of a place out of love, not fear. You know that in the Bible it says that love casts out fear? That's where these women live from. But the opposite is where Pharaoh lived from. Pharaoh lived from fear casting out love. Friends, the third thing is listen to those voices that are calling us to a new way. So the first one, again, is to live in a world that is not of scarcity. The world is abundant, not scarce. The second one is that to not, sorry, I get that. The second one is as much as we think we're in control, we're not, and to be okay with that. And the third one is to live from a place, or to listen to the voices of those who are calling us to a different life. Friends, as I said in the beginning, Exodus is an invitation. It's an invitation to help us identify. It's to ask us to look at ourselves and say, where do I live from? Do I live out of that place of fear that just needs more fear and more fear? It's more destructive and more destructive. Am I living from that place? Am I Pharaoh? Am I Pharaoh that has to keep consuming? Or am I the midwife, Pharaoh's daughter and the baby's mother? Am I living out of a place of love that says I will not live out of insecurity? That says that I would rather give life than take life. I would rather see life expanded. I would rather engage with all of it than oppress others. Which one are you? Which one are you? Are you Pharaoh, or are you the midwives, the mother, and Pharaoh's daughter? Which one are you? Because one leads to life, and the other one leads to oppression. One is sustainable, and one will come down. Which one are you? So maybe, friends, you this week will find yourself putting yourself in different shoes. That maybe you'll find yourself walking around and going, today I realized I'm walking a little bit in Pharaoh's shoes. And that's not a good place to be. Or maybe some days or some moments you'll find yourself going, yep, I'm walking in these other shoes, in the midwife, the mother, and Pharaoh's daughter. And I am choosing to live out a place of love rather than fear. May you, as you find yourself walking through these characters, find yourself liberated in new ways. So friends, it's been lovely sharing the morning with you. Keep safe. And if there's anything I can do, please just get in contact. May God bless you and keep you. Have a great week.